to Mr. Anderson Obiagu, the founder of AFRIMA. Because he's such a special guest, I want to attempt something a little bit different, a little bit new, which I don't do usually on this channel, to usher him in with a little African rhythm from the continent, from the motherland, not from my home country, Cameroon, but from Kenya. Let me see if this works.
That was interesting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Obiagu. Really appreciate you joining us today. African music is all the rage. African music is making inroads in all parts of the world. Matter of fact, recently, Spotify said in 2022 that Afrobeats is one of the most popular musical genres of the world. And if you're not satisfied with Spotify and the fact that African music is getting a lot of attention, check this out. The world famous Rolling Stone also said that more and more people from all across the world are listening to Africa. And yes, they're listening thanks to Afrobeats and the other musical genres from Africa. And they quantified that in 2022 alone, well over 42, no, $44 million, $44 million would go back to African artists in Nigeria without even counting the other countries such as Tanzania, such as Uganda, such as Mali, and Senegal, you name them. There's so many parts of Africa that are getting recognition thanks to African music. And I've been looking far and wide to find someone who is informed, someone who knows what is going on with respect to African music in the diaspora. And I found Mr. Obiagu. I could not be happier because he knows what is going on. He lives in the city of Dallas. And I was fortunate recently to discover his programs, his fashion program, flagship program. And I was sitting there and I was like soaking it in. And I was so impressed with the work that he has done. And I thought, you know what? It's good for all our audiences in Asia, in Europe, in Middle East, in Africa, and yes, in North America to know what you're doing with AFRIMA. For those
Thank you.
of you who don't know me, my name is Gideon For-mukwai, and I want to welcome Mr. Anderson Obiago into the studio, sir. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for making the time. I know last week we were supposed to have had some time on Sunday. You're traveling, and your travel plan suffered from some plane delays, and we just did not get to talk. So you're able to make the time today. I want to start by asking you, why did you start this special program or special organization called AFRIMA? Why did you start AFRIMA?
Um, the reason why I started AFRIMA, the parent company of AFRIMA is Bigger Entertainment. We started 15 years ago to bring African artists from all parts of Africa and take them on tour, around the United States and Canada. And I did that. I've done that successfully for 15 years. So within that first 5 years of running Bigger Entertainment, then the big award shows in America, like the Grammys, the BETs, the MTVs,
Mm-hmm.
when they nominate our African artists, they give them the awards backstage or at the pre-show in the morning. So I was already working with these dope artists, great artists like David Doe, Diamond Platinum, and the rest of them. So we decided, my team and I came together and decided to create a platform for us where we can celebrate our own talents, give them the stage so
Mm-hmm.
they can grace the stage and present them the awards on stage. That was how we came out. I mean, that was how
Mm.
we came up with AFRIMA, which pretty much is for us by us.
Amazing, amazing. So that it came from observing our talented artists not given the center stage like they deserve. You said,
Yes.
why should we be given the so-called the baby pool if there's a mega pool where they can swim in? Why should they be given the awards in the morning or off camera when they too need to grace the center stage like everyone else? I think that is a powerful statement that we want to change the narrative. But what still perplexes me is most people have not known about AFRIMA for quite a while. I lived on the west coast of America for a long time before moving here to Dallas, Texas in the last couple of months, and I did not know much about AFRIMA. Can you tell us what AFRIMA has been doing in the last, say, I know, well over 7, 8, 9, 10 years? What has AFRIMA been doing, sir?
Just bridging the gap, bringing Africa to the, showcasing Africa to the world through music, bringing, other parts of Africa for a weekend in Africa and here in America. So it's just, finding a way to bring these people, these artists from the East, West, North, and South. And, most of them just listen to each other's music on Spotify and other music platforms. And they admire each other and hope to work with each other. But they've never had that opportunity to be under, and that's what AFRIMA has done for most of them. A lot of collaborations has really happened because of AFRIMA. Because when they come out here, they get to exchange numbers, exchange ideas, and make decisions to collaborate and do music together. So I would say, besides crossing boundaries with music, AFRIMA is also uniting Africa through music.
That is very interesting because I have come to realize that Africans in diaspora, they are united. However, they are not as united as one would expect. So what you're telling me is you're helping them to connect the dots to realize that there's a lot more that holds us together than separates us.
Exactly.
Because when you have an artist, say Diamond, working with an artist such as Flavor, I bet that Africa wins. And if Africa wins, the world
Definitely.
would listen. Don't you think so? I'm sure these are the kind of things that
Definitely.
you've been doing.
Yep.
So, in the last few years, what kind of which collaborations have you seen spring out of the AFRIMA platform? If you don't mind to share a couple of them with us. Yeah.
A whole lot. David Doe collaborating, Fali with Flavor, Kenzo with Teddy A. It's too many collaborations has really happened at AFRIMA.
Wow, wow, wow. And for those of us who don't know, for those who don't know, they don't understand that fellow Africans had to travel thousands of miles to America through the orchestration of AFRIMA. And when they get here, then they realize, you know what? I've listened to your music, you've listened to my music. We may as well do a collaboration. For those that are watching, they don't know that there's somebody who is planning this, orchestrating this quietly in the background. That's why we really found out that you are a true unsung hero. A true unsung hero with an untold story. And on Story Warrior channel, we want to feature the people that are doing the work quietly in the background. That people don't often give them the attention, don't often give them the recognition. So this is why this is such a special joy for us to have you here. Now, when it comes to music streaming, where do you see the future? Is the future is it being driven by Africans? Is it driven by Westerners? Or who do you think is having a significant contribution?
I think it's Africa first. Africa, they came from Africa, so charity begins at home. The home support. I mean, we don't always understand how strong we are. I mean, how strong our numbers are. Just Nigeria alone has a population of, I think, 260 million people, just Nigeria. And the whole of the United States is about 300 and something million. So you have to understand there is power in our numbers. So the streaming numbers are going up, and it's amazing because the Western world is paying attention to the music. So they're now falling in line. They're now beginning to pay attention to this continent and the music. So the streaming numbers, of course, is definitely gonna keep going up. But you also have to understand the foundation of those numbers was built by Africans, especially Africans in diaspora.
Okay. So the Africans at home, they consume a lot of music on their cellular phones. That the world knows that Africa, there are about a 1.2 or 3 billion people in Africa. And because there is not so much penetration of internet, so people tend to depend a lot on their cell phones. So when it comes to streaming, I think you're right. Africa is leading the way. And now Africans in diaspora still tend to consume African music. and African music is penetrating like wildfire in Europe, in Asia, Singapore, precisely where I lived and worked for several years. It is penetrating in a major way, and I can say this because I watched Yosundo's uh, uh, public events in Singapore, and they're jam packed. There's no room. It's standing room, and it's sold out concerts here and there. So I think that music from Africa is not only getting appreciated in the West, it's also getting appreciated in the East. And people don't often give credit to that. But when it comes to some big names that you've brought out here, which are some of the biggest names from the continent, from the motherland, that you've brought out to the West, say to US and Canada, or maybe beyond, depending on the other places where you have influence?
So many of them. I've worked with Davido. I've worked with Whiskey, Burna Boy. I've worked with Fali Pupa. I've worked with um, Diamond Plat. Just too many of them. Too many to mention. Too many to remember. Timaya, Bracket, Casey, Flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a whole lot of them. I've been doing it. Like I said, I've been doing it for 15 years. So
Yes,
I've pretty much worked with every major African artist in the industry.
amazing. From the southern part of Africa, who are the artists that you see coming up that are getting increasingly appreciated in the West, if that's something that has come onto your radar? Because we know that as Mampiano too is coming up strong. And you would even go into some quarters where people are trying to compete, uh, uh, pitch Mampiano and Afrobeats head to head. But I'm just curious, from Southern Africa, what are the artists that you see coming up that are getting increasingly recognized in the diaspora and beyond?
Yeah, I've worked with so many Southern African, South African artists like Master KG. As a matter of fact, Afrima was the first time he came to America when he had those hit records. So he's
Okay,
been to Afrima. And
okay.
then may his soul rest in peace, aka the late rapper from South Africa. He was at Afrima 2006, and I believe that was his first time in America too.
I
We've
see.
also worked with a couple of South African legends
Mhm.
like Yvonne Chaka Chaka. She's been at Afrima, and then we also yeah, we worked with a couple of Gaspar Caspar Noves.
Mhm.
We really worked with a whole lot of South African artists, a whole lot of them.
Okay. Very interesting. And the world now knows about Master KG, but pandemic played a part, and maybe I did not know that you had brought Master KG to US.
Yeah.
So that's really credit to AFRIMA. And the other area where you're very famous, or should I say, you participate a lot, you contribute a lot in connecting the dots, in bridging the gap, is the world of fashion. And myself and my wife, we got to know about your programs through your wife. We participated in this year. We paid full tickets, came for the fashion show, but unfortunately, the final grand concert on the Sunday, we could not make it. But when I sat there and observed the fashion show, I walked away and I said, this is as good as I've seen anywhere else. In countries such as Singapore, Hong Kong, and so on, where I spent most of my career, I was very impressed with what I saw. So tell us about your inroads into the fashion world, because fashion and music tend to go hand in hand, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, there's no better way to introduce people to your culture than through music and fashion. People will always appreciate fashion. People will always dress up. People are open to you know, new styles and fashion. So
Yes.
we try to introduce Africa to diaspora through our music and also our amazing fashion. So we started the Afrima, and then we decided, hey, since everybody's gonna here in town,
Hmm.
let's just give them a lot more than just the music. So what else are we gonna give them? We thought about the food. We thought about the food. We said, okay, let's start with fashion. That was how
Yeah.
we ended up creating the fashion aspect of that. So that was how we started the fashion show.
Amazing, amazing. I saw some big name, um, young and upcoming stars perform in the fashion show. I was very impressed. I was sometimes moved to tears because uh, for a long time, the world has not given Africa the credit that Africa deserves. Now, increasingly, the rest of the world is tuning in and listening and following and watching. And what you're doing is you're giving a platform to our young and rising stars to shine as bright as shining stars they could be in any part of the world. The other thing that continues to fascinate me is Afrobeats. is not only appreciated by ethnic Africans. Which are some of the other cultural groups that you see resonate very well, ethnic groups that you see resonate very well with Afrobeats, African music of all genres?
Everybody's vibing to Afrobeats right now. Just it's not just one particular ethnic group or whatever. Everybody's on it. It's like the new reggae. It's like the new dancehall. It's the new wave.
Yes.
Afrobeats is the new wave right now. So everybody's on it.
So, with respect to diaspora, uh, definitely Dallas is your hotspot. Which other cities are you exploring, either to host events or you're already hosting events? Because let's be honest, there are millions of Africans in other cities. I got to realize recently that in Minneapolis, the businessman, or in the state of Minnesota, the businessman of the year, guess what? It's an African. An African in a state that big with a particular tooth for cuisine. Now, you're not touching on cuisine yet, but I wonder which other cities have you taken AFRIMA's programs and shows to so far?
Yeah, the parent company, Bigger Entertainment. I still do tours here in the states every year, and we go to. I mean, we've touched pretty much every city in America,
Mhm.
so we're still doing our tours. But Afrima that once in a year event that we do. But Big Entertainment always is always on tour with different artists from Africa from January to December every year.
Oh, so this is for me through the eyes of someone who's only started observing in the last couple of months. This is not just a one time, a once in a year showcase. It's throughout the year that you're running events in different cities.
Yes, but the Afrima Award is once in a year.
Oh,
But my
okay,
events, my tours, musical tours with different artists happens throughout the year in different cities in America and Canada.
I see, I see. And where are we seeing a lot of support from African diaspora? Which are the bigger cities that tend to, say, hey, we're planting our flag here. We honor this. This is a true African product, or in my words, a true African export. African music is a fine African export that people don't give enough credit to. Which are the big cities that are receptive to our music and fashion so far?
A lot of the cities like DC, DC, I think DC they have the highest number of the highest population of Africans in DC, followed by Houston, if I'm not mistaken, and then Dallas. Yeah, it's always DC. DC is always a huge turnout, followed by Houston and then Dallas.
Wow. So that sounds very reasonable because yes, I've figured out that DC has humongous numbers, and yes, Houston very large numbers. But I did not see Dallas coming in. I thought maybe it would be some other place. But it's interesting to know that Dallas is coming in strong. What about places like Minnesota?
Yeah, I've done a lot of shows in Minnesota, a whole lot of shows in Minnesota. It's always a great turnout,
Mhm.
but I'm talking about where you can actually boast of 3 to 4 thousand people coming out to a concert. You know,
Yes. Wow. So, what are the challenges you're facing? I know AFRIMA is one of its kind, without a doubt. So, being a pioneer, being a trailblazer, being the one that is breaking new ground, you obviously are facing some incredible challenges and strong winds against you. What are some of the challenges that you're facing?
of course, the challenges we've faced from the get go is getting big corporations behind the brand, and but it's gradually getting better. It's just like going to someone coming to you now to ask you to sponsor a
Mhm.
Chinese award
Mhm.
that you don't know nothing about. But now, based on the fact that Afrobeats is getting played everywhere now, and
Yes.
they begin to understand the music, from the music to the culture to the people. So it's not a it's a familiar conversation now, like
Yes.
than compared to 10 years ago or 15 years ago when we started. When
Yes.
you go in there and say you were trying to put together an African music award, they're looking at you like how, well, what is that? Who are those musicians? But now, at least if you walk into a room full of Americans and you ask 50 people to mention or name one Afrobeat artist or
Mm.
an Afrobeat song, I'm sure you're gonna get a couple of people raise their hands. So
Yes.
it's getting easier by the day. It's not gonna come easy. We're just gonna keep knocking on those doors till they're open.
Amazing. Amazing. When it really struck me that Afrobeats and African music is going to be part of the main stage in every walk of life is when I saw some of the artists performing at the NBA Finals.
Of course.
I
Yeah.
said to myself, all right, if they're there, some of them are filling Madison Square Garden. That means the center stage is no longer reserved for a few. It's for everyone who has the ability and the talent to go out and perform and go out and tell their story. And credit to Africa in the sense that we've always been the home place, the founders of some of the oldest musical instruments that you can imagine in the world.
Yeah.
So how could we invent the best instruments and yet we get relegated from the limelight? How could we miss all of that for so long? So when you go out there, you're meeting, say, with sponsors, you're meeting, say, with people who are showing increasing interest in African music or to patronize events. What message are you telling them about this new search, this new love for African music?
You just have to tell them what those corporations are interested in. They're just interested in your numbers because they want it to be mutually beneficial. The partnership to be mutually beneficial to both parties. So they also need to understand the numbers, the followership, the people, the number of people that are actually gravitating towards Africa and the music.
Yes, sir.
So that's what they're looking at. You just have to show them the numbers. That's the
Yes.
numbers that they're looking for. We didn't have the numbers back in the days,
Yeah.
but now we're racking up the numbers. Just like you go on Spotify, people like Rema has over what 40,000 monthly listeners, 40
Yeah.
million
Yeah.
monthly listeners. That's a
Yeah.
huge number.
That's
So
right.
you just want to understand that hey, if we put money behind this brand, what kind of exposure are we gonna get?
Gonna get. Everyone is watching. Everyone is listening. And I stumbled on an interview at Google. Guess who was there? Mr. Easy. And this is not today. It was way back like 2017. I'm thinking, how did I miss this? And he had a center stage, not a performance, but an interview by some of the top technical minds at Google, asking him about the growth and the penetration of African music. And that conversation was very, very, very incisive. I came away telling myself, okay, if this is what Google is taking notice, all the other big corporations obviously will be taking notice. So I think that you definitely started, you had a foresight to start planting the seeds, sowing the seeds just in time because now everything is going to explode sooner than later. When it comes to music from Northern Africa, say the Maghreb region, the Egypt, the Moroccos, the Tunisias, the Libyas, uh, are you getting an increasing number of people paying attention to that, or is that desert part of Africa in terms of music? Please excuse me if I'm just
Well,
ignorant.
they have their own following too. Like, AFRIMA is all inclusive. We have categories for northern part of Africa and just pretty much every part of Africa. So even when we nominate those artists, you see the votes coming in hundreds of thousands, and they
Okay,
have their own following too. It's not
okay.
because you're not listening to their music doesn't mean they don't have listeners. Of course they do.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those artists, if you go on their social media page,
Mm-hmm.
their following is in the millions, and
Okay,
you look at their streaming numbers, it's also in the millions. So obviously they have a great following too. But I think it's gonna take a while for every part of African music to catch on. Right now, the focus internationally is Afrobeat.
mm-hmm.
So he's gonna get there, and even my piano is getting big right now.
Yes,
I saw sometime a week or 2 weeks ago, Uncle Waffle sold out a 4,000 capacity venue in New York.
mm-hmm.
Who could have thought that would happening today? I mean,
Okay,
who thought that would be happening today? Like
exactly,
it's
exactly.
it's amazing.
It's incredible, and we're not even talking about UK because UK has traditionally been more receptive, and I think to some extent France,
Yeah.
especially for Northern African influence. But the one area where I've not seen any penetration or collaboration, what about artists from a place like Senegal? Is it that they tend to prefer to tour individually, or have you been able to work with artists from Senegal?
Yeah, we've had a couple of artists from Senegal. They get nominated every year. They've been to AFRIMA. I think this year, I think we had an artist from Senegal here in Dallas. Like,
Mm.
yeah, We have some great musicians from, and most of them have done collaborations
Mhm.
with some big. I think I had one of we. I linked one of them up with Davido, and they had a collaboration. That was a long time ago. Like it's yeah,
Interesting.
it's all. I mean, Afrima is all inclusive.
Yes. Okay. Very interesting because, of course, the last thing you want to do is to be exclusive. It's better to be inclusive.
Of course,
But the spotlight on Congo, which has traditionally been a powerhouse, tell us a little bit about music from Congo, how it's getting appreciated in the diaspora. Um,
amazing, amazing. Congo. I think part of the regions in Africa that had the first, that had the first musical outbreak in Africa was the Congolese music.
yes,
Remember the days of Awilo Logomba,
yes, yes,
the
yeah,
greats, the
the
back in
great
the days.
ones.
Exactly. So
Kofi
if you
Olomide.
allow me, yes,
Yeah,
exactly. And I've worked with a lot of their artists. They're amazing. So I've worked with, I've been a part of Fally Ipupa's tour,
hmm,
not once, not twice, not thrice. And he was at AFRIMA this year. Fally Ipupa, that's what
yeah,
I'm talking about.
yes,
There's a whole lot of great artists from that area region. We have Fabregas. We have so many of them, so many amazing talents, and you'd be amazed. They're selling out arenas across the world. Fali has a huge concert in Paris, November 15th.
there you go.
He's already sold out the venue, 30,000 capacity venue in Paris.
I'm not surprised. I'm not
So,
surprised.
so it's crazy.
I'm not
Trust me,
surprised.
it's crazy. You
Okay.
know,
The other powerhouse that I don't see a lot coming out of, maybe because they're going through some conflict now, is Mali. For a long time, they said Malians are the best drummers in Africa. I hope I'm not getting myself into trouble here. What is there still a lot of creative energy coming out of Mali that is touching on
yeah,
lives of people?
yeah, a lot of artists, a lot of great artists. Actually, I mean, I really putting out good music from Mali, and it's just that we don't hear about all of them at the same time. Right now, it's like like I said, the focus is on I'm a piano and Afro
Yes,
beats for now. I feel like it's gonna everybody. I mean, it's gonna be everybody's turn at some point. It's
mm-hmm,
gonna
mm-hmm.
move from country, region to
Yes,
region to
yes. Um,
experience every single part of African music.
yes, Piano, dominantly Southern Africa, Zimbabwe, and South Africa, whereas Afrobeats traditionally or typically Nigeria and
West
who
Africa,
West Africa to a large extent, Togo. Um, is
Ghana,
Ghana really part of Afrobeats fever?
yeah, yeah, of course. I have King Promise does Afrobeat.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Okay, as we see different parts of Africa emerging, and of course, for a long time, I did not see Tanzania. I did not see Tanzania on the list until Diamond came up really, really, really strong. Maybe it was just that I was short sighted. Uh, but I know that Ethiopia too is bursting at the seams. But they kind of embrace a different kind of genre. I don't know if it's different, but I know that Ethiopian artists in Canada are doing exceptionally well. When you do Afro beats, when you do support African music, do you support predominantly those who are back in the mother continent, or even those who are out in the West?
Mostly. I mean, if you're African, you're African. If you're making Afrobeats, it doesn't matter where you are making Afrobeats. It's still the same music. It's still the same sound. So
Yeah.
it's just for everybody that is doing the music.
Yes.
As long as you're an African musician and you're an African creative, of course, we'll find you.
Mhm. In a spotlight, are you able to do in a spotlight on Ethiopia? What do you make of what is coming out of Ethiopia? And I don't want to say Kenya, but just Ethiopia. What do you make of the music coming out of that
Music,
region?
yeah, there are quite a lot. We've had quite a lot of artists from Ethiopia at AFRIMA, a whole lot of them, and they have a huge pool, especially when they do concerts in the DC area.
Yes.
They usually sell out arenas. I'm talking about 2, 3, 4,000 capacity arenas here in America. So
Yep.
Ethiopian music is huge. It's very, very big out here. A
Yes.
lot of the artists come out here on tour and also tour Canada too.
Yes. And I would imagine the West Coast, in Seattle, in Portland, uh, those ethnic groups are very, very well represented there.
Even
Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota, yes.
Minnesota, even like tenfold, whatever you see in Portland
Yep,
and Seattle. Yes, Minnesota is really a hotbed for talent from
East
East Africa.
Africa.
Yes, so you've had collaborations with artists from North Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa, West Africa, all across the board. Going forward,
Yes.
what are some of the trends that you see, you perceive as someone who's got your feet steeped into the issues, steeped into the funding, into the tour market, into how audiences are embracing African music? How do you see this evolving, say, in the next 5 years?
It's going to get bigger. It's definitely going to get bigger. Right now, a couple of Afrobeat artists are selling out arenas, 20,000, 30,000 capacity venues. I see them 2,000 capacity venues in the next 2 3 years.
Wow, wow,
Yeah.
wow. So it is safe to say we can all bet on on this growing African export, because it used to be our export was timber, cocoa, coffee, petroleum,
Yeah.
gas. Now this other invisible intellectual property is making rounds, and we should be ready to see more and more of that in the West
Definitely.
and beyond.
Definitely.
Okay, so this has been very interesting and very exciting from my point of view, and much shorter than I expected. But in the last, let's say we take another 10 minutes, we just do a little review of what we've done, so that we can use this portion for promotion. You can use a clip of there, we can use a clip of that. But is that okay, or you want to give some other insights about what activities you're doing before we do the final phase?
What we're doing is trying to get better at what we've been doing over the years, trying to tell the African story through music and fashion. And next day is going to be our 11th anniversary. We plan to, go to different parts of Africa, to the eastern part, northern part, and the rest of them to hold workshops, educate the upcoming artists and the music business, the business side of music, what they can do to put their music out there, how they can better market their music, the intellectual property laws,
Yes.
what they need to do, just get them a little bit prepared and ready. Most of them, I did a workshop sometime before the pandemic in Botswana. You get to understand that most of these young upcoming artists really don't have a clue
Mm-hmm.
what it takes to be in music business. They have the talent, they make the music,
Mm-hmm.
but that's it. And most of them, when I had that seminar, most of these artists, they on their social media, they were private. They were
Mm.
private. Their social media pages were private.
Yeah.
I kept asking them why. They said, hey, that they were hoping for people to
Oh my God.
request for them to follow them.
Which is
They're making
counterproductive.
music. I'm like, you're making music. You're not making music for you and your family. You're making music for the whole world
Oh,
to listen to. And you're supposed to be the first person to push your music, and your page is private. Like I was just my goal is to travel, to these different regions, especially not, like the smaller cities, the smaller countries,
mm-hmm.
rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole lot of talent in Africa, trust me.
Yes.
And most of these talents don't even know how to go about this music. They know they have the talent. They don't know
Yes.
the thinking you have to be signed to a label. You have to go through all this rigorous process for you to start picking up music. And they
Mm-hmm.
don't know you can just sit in this room, make your music, and put it out from. So it's that's one thing I'm trying to do next year. I'm trying to go to as many countries as possible. Continue the workshop. We plan to do it. We did one. Then the pandemic. We're supposed to be in Tanzania. We're supposed to be in Uganda,
Okay.
Kenya, but the pandemic hit and that suspended all the plans. But we are back on track now. So hopefully by next year we're gonna be on the road again.
Very interesting and insightful. Now, for those who are not familiar with AFRIMA, who may be watching this channel from some of my audiences in Singapore, in Asia, if somebody wants to learn about AFRIMA and the amazing work that you're doing, where should they go to? And is there a website? Is it a link? I'm sure there is. Or channel.
Yeah, I mean, on our website you can get as much information as possible from our website is afrimma.com, afrima.com. On social media is afrima. That's Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and the rest of them. And then I also have a book about my journey.
No kidding.
It's it's called Crossing Boundaries with Music from Past to Present. It's on Amazon.
Crossing
Crossing
boundaries.
Crossing Boundaries with Music from Past to Present by
Okay.
Anderson Obiagu. It's on
Oh,
Amazon. Just a summary of my journey, my story through music. So
amazing. I
my
would.
story, the challenges, pretty much everything you've asked me
Yes.
on this podcast. So go there, you understand the struggle, how we started, how we pushed, the obstacles we encountered on the way.
Yes.
You know, it's just a brief summary of my journey.
Hmm. Very interesting. At the start, I did not know about the book, and now I know about your book. I'm obviously going to get that and read it. So, what is your background? Did you start out in music? Are you from a musical family? Are you from a fashion family? We know you as a
No,
businessman.
I'm not. I'm from a business background. My dad was a successful businessman, but I started off in healthcare. I'm a respirator. I was a respiratory therapist by profession, and then I started my own businesses. Started big entertainment, then AFRIMA, and But I was never. There was no musician in my family. No band member in my family. I think I was the first person to actually embrace music.
Yes. Really, really insightful. Okay, so we start the last portion here, which is just tick tock, quick question, quick summary, and then we'll use this in the end. So once again, thank you so much, Mr. Obiagu, for taking the time. I have been a fan of your work in the last couple of months. From the moment my wife first told me about AFRIMA, I fell in love with the idea because I did not think that there was anybody else filling this gap that you have filled, which is connecting the dots between Africa, the motherland, and the rest of the world. And the best part is you're not connecting the dots with diamonds, you're not connecting the dots with gold, you're connecting the dots with music. And I think music is a powerful export that unites people of all backgrounds. So I'm forever grateful for what you're doing. But tell us something about the founding of AFRIMA. Why did you find it necessary to start AFRIMA?
Yeah, like I said, like I feel like our artists, they needed a voice out here in diaspora. I feel like they needed someone to pat them at the back for their hard work they've put into their music, the hard work they've put in. They put into preaching Africa to the world. And at that point, they were being led by the Western world. We decided to create a platform for us by us. That was how we decided. That was why we decided to come up with an award show that will celebrate their talent, their hard work, and that's how we came up with AFRIMA.
Amazing. That's very inspiring to me because even the founding of a Story Warrior channel, having been an educator for many years, uh, worked in dozens and dozens of countries teaching corporate executives, I decided, one thing that I'm good at is telling stories. But instead of telling other people's stories, why don't I start telling stories of fellow Africans who are doing incredible work? I call them unsung heroes with untold stories. And so when I found AFRIMA, I said, this is a perfect example because what you're doing is something that everybody needs to celebrate. Everybody needs to know that you're doing because you're giving a platform to others to shine. And in our own modest way, we want to start recognizing those who are doing similar work like you. So when did you first start AFRIMA, African Music Awards?
Yeah, 2014. We started in
2014.
2000.
That's a long time ago. And believe it or not, that was the first year or so that I listened to a song by Dibanj while flying on Emirates. I was living in Singapore. I was not the wave of African music had not touched Singapore at that time. Yet there are thousands and thousands of African professionals living there. Flying on Emirates, I see this song. I'm like, this sounds so eerily close to home. This strikes me as something that is mine. And listen to it. Is that pidgin English? It is. Is that it? It made my day. Even though I was flying home for a very sad reason, but it totally changed. It changed the pace and the sense of homecoming for me. So 2014, I did not know that you started this way, way, way back. So throughout the years, you have been connecting Africa with diaspora. Tell us some of the artists that you've brought out to the diaspora and by so doing, give them a bigger platform to play on.
A lot of them from the rave of the moment now. Rema,
Rema?
I did his first tour here in America. I did Davido's first tour
Wow.
here in America. I worked with Diamond Platinum, Fali Pupa. I've worked with Awilo Logumba. I've worked with pretty much everybody in the industry.
Wow. These are
Yeah.
all big names. These are big names. For those who know, these are big names on the mother continent.
Master KG from Southern Africa. I worked with Eddie Kenzo. I worked with Wiry the Love Child from Kenya.
Mhm.
I worked with just pretty much every major artist from any region in Africa.
I didn't hear flavor, and I'm just assuming
Yeah, I worked. Yeah,
there's no need to mention flavor because okay, like okay, all right.
yeah,
So
I worked with Flavor from the beginning. I mean, from the inception of his career till
wow,
date, and
wow,
yeah, pretty much Two Face, Timaya,
hmm,
just name it.
interesting. And the other part of your business interest is fashion. Um, I watched the fashion show recently. Tell us what are some of the highlights of the fashion show? Is it specifically the talent that is in the motherland, or mostly the talent that is in diaspora that you're promoting, or both?
It's a mixture of both. We have, I think we had about 8 designers from the continent and about maybe 6 or 7
Mhm.
from diaspora. From we had one from England, we had one from Canada, and a couple within the United States. So it's like a mixture of homeland
Okay,
and designers here in diaspora.
okay. And in diaspora, which are the cities that are resonating well with the AFRIMA um, shows that you've been putting up over the years?
I think all the cities we always get a huge turnout from different cities.
Yeah.
You know, they already know about it. They've been a part of it. They've always supported it. You know.
Mhm. Is Atlanta on your map, or as Georgia? Is Georgia on your map? I know you've mentioned Dallas, Texas. You mentioned Houston. You
Yeah,
mentioned DC. Have you done any shows in
I've done a
Atlanta?
lot of I've done a whole lot of concerts in Atlanta. I did a couple of concerts there this year and last year. Yeah, I've always done concerts in Atlanta. Atlanta is like a second home.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I would expect that because Atlanta is very cosmopolitan, and it has been the hotbed for support of African culture in many ways. So, besides America and Canada, have you also thought about our lost brothers and sisters in places like Asia? Because there is an increasing number. I would almost consider myself half Asian because I spent 10 years over there that don't get to have a flavor of this amazing work that you're doing here. Have you forgotten about them?
No, I mean right now I live here in America, and my focus right now is here, America, and then my workshops in Africa.
Mhm.
That's my primary focus for now. Hopefully, in the nearest future, hopefully we'll get to explore those areas.
Okay. What are the big challenges that you face? I imagine there should be a lot of them that you face in the course of cutting new ground, trailblazing, getting people to listen, getting people to pay attention. As the years go by, what are the challenges that you're facing?
The same challenges that minorities face in America. They don't really believe in your story. They don't really believe in your numbers. They don't really believe in your culture. So, like I said earlier, but now the story is gradually changing because the world is beginning to listen to African music. So now the music gets you into those doors, and then your story will not keep you inside that room. So
Mm.
yeah, the doors are opening, but they're opening gradual, and I hope it's gonna keep getting better year in year out. You know.
We want to thank you so much for being an avant-garde, for being a trailblazer, for being a torchbearer of African music, African fashion, African culture to the rest of the world. I absolutely appreciate what you're doing, and I believe most of our viewers, whether they're in Asia, whether they're in America or in the Middle East, I believe that they would appreciate what you're doing because you're connecting the dots. You're building bridges of understanding. You're not forcing people apart, you're bringing people together. And yes, I don't think that Rolling Stone is wrong. The amount of $44 million that is going into the pockets of African musicians who support Afrobeats from just Nigeria alone is going to continue to grow. And I believe with that, more and more people will continue to discover the beauty that lies hidden in the heart of Africa. That is our music, our culture, our interest in expressing or telling our stories. Thank you for telling stories through music. Thank you for connecting the cultures. We are very grateful to you, Mr. Obiagu. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. You too.